Hey, it's Nicole. Welcome back to the show. So excited to have you today and to introduce you to our guest, Ali Greene. Ali is the co-founder of Remote Works, an organizational design and consulting firm with a mission to liberate teams from the 9 to 5 and teach them how to do their best work anytime, anywhere. In fact, she is chatting with us from France. Just proof that she's a practitioner, that she knows this stuff and she gets it and she can help you remote work too.
Hey, if you're an entrepreneur who usually fast forwards intros just like this one, this is the podcast for you.
Ali, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Very excited for our conversation.
Bonjour, Ali.
Sure. That's why we pay him the big bucks. Right there. Those one-liners. I love it. Hey, just a reminder, our show is brought to you by Smart Cookie Media, where we believe data tells a story, and not just any story, your business story. As a subscriber to the show or as a client, you'll get insights on profitable, data-driven marketing strategies that work for you and your business, your industry. Not some cookie cutter trends, no. Ideas that are led by your customer data so you know they'll work for you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or Instagram to learn more. Everything's in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the show. We'd like to start off with the same way we do with all of our guests. Ali, tell me, how would you finish the sentence? You know you're an entrepreneur when?
When you can't let an idea sit, you have to figure out how to create with your idea.
Oh my gosh, it sounds like there's a story there. When was the last time you had one of those ideas you just couldn't let sit?
So the book Remote Works was born from the consulting business, or the consulting business was born from the book. Either way, it's been a really big journey into growing and building a business and supporting others that do the same. And it started with this idea, this fear that me and Tam had that started as a conversation around, hey, everybody's trying out this remote work thing and we know that they're going to fail and we know we can help them. How should we help them? And immediately our brains went to, we can help them with surveys. We can help to diagnose what's going on with their teams and how to make it better for them. We can help them by writing a book so they have all of the resources at their fingertips to go in and build their skill set for themselves instead of relying on coaching and consulting and taking months to make small improvements. They can read a book and make small improvements right away. But hey, also, if they want to, get hands deep into like how to make things work and being really collaborative with people who have done it before, they can bring us on to help them with that journey. And so that was an idea that has just grown and grown and grown to how do we share our knowledge, to how do we really help make change on something that we feel is really important for the future of work.
So I have to ask, because you have stated the word how probably 15 times when we were going through that. So that tells me you really like to get into the nuts and bolts of things, of how things operate, how things are communicated, how the gears are turning, right? So what was one of the times where you sat back and said, wow, how did they get this messed up?
I'm glad that you picked up on that. One of my last full-time roles, I had the internal nickname of being Miss Process because I needed to figure out how things worked and how to make them better. And I was always, making process improvements and figuring out new formulas to bring the business to the next level. So the fact that you already picked up on this in the conversation really amuses me and takes me back to that. The reason why I think a lot of companies have gotten to this point where they don't know how to lean into remote work is because there's a lot of fear involved. And it's really unusual to talk about emotion in business. A lot of people, I think, want to keep those things separate, but we are humans and you can't separate emotion from the lived experience, even the lived experience of growing and building your own business. Right now, we are in the moment of an evolution. And in that evolution, we're telling business owners, people that have been so successful in their career, hey, what has gotten you here will no longer get you there. And that's really scary for people to sit with and to say, okay, are you going to teach an old dog new tricks? Like, is this really happening? Am I ready emotionally? Am I ready from a learning agility standpoint to make all of these changes? And that's scary and it takes a lot of work. And that's why there's so much tension right now on, are you going to lean into making that change and making your business grow in a remote or digital first environment? Or are you going to cling on to the old way of doing things, the things that have made you successful so far?
So it's scary for both the remote worker and the employer or the business owner, correct? I mean, you have this push and pull thing going on both sides.
It's scary for everybody. I think everybody's just trying to figure it out. And unfortunately, media attention likes glamorizing conflict. And there's really good stories about employer versus employer, office versus remote, or all of these intense dichotomies when it doesn't have to be an either or situation. It's about what's mutually beneficial for the goals of our business and how the work gets done and what can make us most successful. And that is leaning into technology. If you're going to lean into technology and be part of the future, knowing how to do some of this remote work stuff, even if you're going to choose to have an office, even if you're a brick and mortar company or a small business like a bakery, the skill sets behind the concepts of remote work are going to be critical moving forward.
I love that you brought that up and you brought it to even brick and mortar because you and your co-founder, Tamara, you had varied experiences. Would you walk through some of that from DuckDuckGo? I even think from Google. I want everyone to know how much you get and understand that and how you might have been that process person at one of those places. But then it sounds like you're also trying to meet everybody on Main Street too. Will you talk about your experiences?
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, I bring out the bakery example as a brick and mortar example because while I was the head of HR at DuckDuckGo for fun, I worked at a bakery. And so you talk about leaning into flexibility and like owning your passion. I really wanted to learn how to bake cakes. And I was new in town to the city that I moved to. And I was like, hey, what's a cool way to get involved with my community? Oh, I'm going to go work at a bakery on a Saturday afternoon for a few hours and like see what happens. So again, just like rethinking what a skill set means in the knowledge environment and also rethinking flexibility. Like I worked in a brick and mortar environment while I was also sitting on the leadership team of a startup. So you can't get more varied than that. And it just speaks to every opportunity to create is a really good opportunity for entrepreneurs. So my background, what I love about me and Tam's dynamic is we've worked for competing companies at different times. And because of that, we have really different mindsets that shift well into our creative process. And so she has experience working at very large organizations and a competitor of mine at DuckDuckGo, which is Google. She has a background in consulting and design thinking. Right before the pandemic, she worked in a really innovative but office first environment doing design thinking. And so really pulled on all of these different experiences that she's had throughout her career in more formal, large industries, such as Oliver Wyman and Google. Whereas I've leaned more towards that startup kind of ragged go-getter culture.
Scrappy.
Yeah.
Being
The scrappy can do, like show me what you want and I'll do it. I remember my very first day working at LivingSocial, which is one of my first jobs out of university. They just handed me the laptop still in the box. And I was like, is this a test? Do I not have the job yet until I set up my own laptop and like use a Mac? Because before I had always been a PC person.
Yeah.
That sort of attitude of like, I'll figure it out, I'll get it done has been really great in our work dynamic. And to think about as you grow a business and as you figure out different personalities, why all these nuanced experiences are interesting. And so I have that startup experience from places like LivingSocial. I worked early days with Oyster, which is a global EOR company. And so really leaning into that remote work advocacy and space. And one of my most cherished experiences in the remote work setting was also my time leading the people function at DuckDuckGo and watching that company scale globally and seeing what came up in terms of culture, communication, processes as you dealt with different cultures, different time zones, all of the concerns that people are having right now about what happens when you leave an office and experiencing that not just with my colleagues, but I started traveling full time during that experience and was going to a different country every 3 weeks to 3 months. You couldn't pin me down. And it was the kind of this ongoing joke internally of where's Ali calling in from today and seeing how that shifted the work dynamics as well.
Wow.
Ali, you've got to tell us your story. What led you to entrepreneurship? Was there a specific moment, event, and experience that you knew this would be your life's work?
I love this question. I don't know if I've ever thought this deeply about it. So this is the first time behind the scenes at Ali Greene. I attribute my desire for remote work and digital nomadism to changing environments a lot. As a kid, I went to 4 different middle schools for no like real reason. Like people always ask me like, oh, were your parents in the military? And I was like, no, it just sort of happened. And I think being open to change is a quality of an entrepreneur that I had in my early childhood experiences. And then the other kind of core memory that sticks out in my developmental years was I was painfully shy when I was a kid, which is funny because now I just love being on
Same. Me
podcasts and
too.
connecting
Same.
with people and talking. I think it's something that shy people maybe go through. How I got out of my shell was through a marketing and entrepreneurship club in high school. I got to run the school store, which was perfect because at lunch, I didn't have to go to lunch and try to socialize with people. I got to like lean into my like nerdy introverted self and like plan like, oh, what sweatshirt's going to sell the most and be really cool and help with the school fashion show. And I found all of these creative outlets. And in that process, you're a teenager, you're finding yourself. I found that these opportunities built my confidence. And in that confidence of being involved in business and thinking about how to make business successful, I felt powerful. I felt excited about the creativity. I felt like I was adding value to people. I felt like I could trust my intuition. It was for the first time these feelings I had as a teenager. So maybe it stemmed from that, but this is the first time I'm putting words to that experience.
I love how you said being open to change. Being open to change is one of those things that you see as a value that entrepreneurs should have, because there's so many times where we have to be able to, quote, roll with the punches, for lack of a better term, right? Have to put out a fire immediately. And knowing that it was okay to be, comfortable with the openness to change so much helps set the tone almost for the rest of your life, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, it's super cliche, but people always say the only constant is change. And I used to get really grumpy when people would say that to me. So I'm like, I've had enough change in my life. Like, okay, I get it. But it's so true. Like, you never know what the next day holds for you. And if you can just be adaptable and also find your inner constant so that you aren't feeling like you're just being thrown around like in, a tumbler dryer or something, that you're strong enough to find your own constant. And in that constant, there will always be change. And if you believe that in yourself, then you can reach your goals. You can lead other people. You can lead a business. You can evolve your business strategy as the needs of the market change. You can do anything if you have that belief in yourself and that flexibility to adapt.
I
Awesome.
love it. So we're talking to a whole lot of serial entrepreneurs here today on the show. Yeah, we talked to some business decision makers too, but we know for sure that when we're running multiple businesses or one business that has multiple product lines, we're not telling any lies here. We know that we're distracted. And I think it's fair to say the whole world is pretty distracted right now. So we want to dive in with you, Ali. When is the last time you were distracted in your business and in your work? Maybe it's something that someone else might have referred to as a shiny object or a squirrel, but it may have led to maybe one of your brightest ideas, or maybe not.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I'm always distracted. You think about shiny objects as one example, but I am distracted constantly by day-to-day life and just all of the admin that is required to be an adult. I'm looking for an apartment right now. That's very distracting for me. And in that, I'm learning things about why is this process broken? Going back again to like, this is the core constant of who I am. I am someone who will look at a process and figure out what's wrong with it and how to improve upon it. And as I look through all of my emotional frustrations around these places are ugly, or the process is backwards, or it's not moving fast enough, I'm thinking about my own business and like what the problem solving solutions are that we offer clients. Is it easy for them to get to know us, get to know what we offer? Or is the process really disjointed, similar to my frustrations that I'm having? What emotions do we want to evoke when people are contacting us and interacting with us, similar to the emotions that I'm getting distracted by? And so I think all of the distractions that you have in your life are great lessons to be learned around what do you want the user experience to be for you? How do you simplify things? How do you move faster if that's one of your business goals? Use your frustration to do good instead of just putter around in the frustration.
Is there an example of that? Something that you've taken direct from your apartment search that you're like, this right here, this is the thing we're going to solve?
Yeah, so we're in the process of creating a new intake form for our consulting clients. So instead of, living again to remote work best practices and values, instead of demanding live time from everybody to get basic information around their challenges, their opportunities, their budget, just simple things. And instead of going back and forth on email, which can be also like annoying and frustrating and distracting, and there's no set cadences of what the priority is for the client, we've created a simple form and a fun survey that also speaks to our vibe and our culture of, being a bit silly. And the client can fill that out on their own time, get us the information that we need so that when we do connect and build that relationship, we already know the key things that we can talk to them about that are useful for them instead of wasting everybody's time with that first sales call that most people don't really want to do anyway.
Yeah.
I
Love
love
it.
I love that this was born out of this concept regarding looking at apartments. Because the first thing I thought about was that I know a real estate agent or two in my life. And so all they want to do is create a personal connection, a personal touch. And yeah, that's great when you're trying to sell them a $500,000, $1 million house, something like that, because the commission's worth it. It's worth investing all that time. But when you're talking about an apartment or a condo or something that someone's going to go rent, those types of people usually that are seeking those out are probably so busy. They're not looking for new friendships. They're not looking for new relationships. They want information to data. They want information to get the problem solved. And yet the system is designed around talk to this agent, talk to this leasing agent, talk to this real estate agent.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to remove the personal connection. It just has to mean that the personal connection feels different. And so I'm all for talking to people and having a nice chat, but I don't want to have the first conversation be a barrier to entry. And I don't want people to feel that about me offering them a service. So already, if we can get, the baseline things on the table.
Yeah.
What is your budget? And does your budget fit and align with anything I can actually offer? If the answer is no on anybody's side, maybe we can create a great relationship, but we can also do that on LinkedIn and, comment on each other's content and share resources. There no longer has to be this old school way of building relationships with people, which is like, let me get on a call and share information with you. It's let me share information with you that's going to be useful to building that relationship and do it in a way that's still respectful of privacy, asking permission, being vulnerable. Maybe they don't know the budget and they're nervous to share that. So give someone an option to not share the information, but give them the option to share too. Both things are easy.
Mm-hmm.
Nicole, can I schedule 30 minutes with you?
You can actually. It's a 20-minute call.
It's
what? So
Yeah.
what Matt's alluding to is this one time somebody reached out on LinkedIn and said, hey, can we schedule something to meet up? And I was like, yeah, do you have a calendar link? Like, I have a calendar link. They sent a 60-minute link. And I was like, oh, there's the backfire right there. I should have sent my link with as much love in my heart as I could. I'm not trying to make him mad, but I wanted that person even to understand the currency of time is a big deal. Yes. Because we only have the slivers we do have. I know that there's the saying, and I love it. Beyonce has the same 24 hours we do. Look what she gets done. She has an army of humans, right? We all got to make do. We got to make do. But with him, I just quickly replied, hey, man, I don't take 60-minute calls. Those are called power hours in my work. Like those are reserved for client work, but I can grab a 20 or 30 minute. Anything that we do over here, it's 20 minutes. Spoiler, I buffer out another 20 minutes in case it goes long. Like I'm not trying to cram people in a sardine can, but it sets the tone of hey, we got 20 minutes together. What can we get done? What's the strategy we're going to talk about if the currency of time needs to be exchanged like that? What happens on my end is after they say, hey, I want that time, I have a form, if you will. I'm using air quotes. If you're in the car driving, you can't see me, that then they quote, fill out, but it's really just 3 short videos through something called Video Ask. And it's me making the personal connection immediately after they've done that. Hey, it's Nicole. I just want to say, I'm so glad that you're booked. And then I get from them what we're going to talk about. Not only is it great for sales and being able to use their words and make sure I'm using their language, there's that. But it's this way that I can warm up that conversation before we even get there, right? It's finding ways that we can use the currency of time really smart. And like you said, we don't just abide by old rules. We can still have a personal connection. We just don't have to consume so much of somebody's time yet. Let's wow them first. Let's impress them another way. And I think that's what you're doing.
Your story reminds me of 2 things. when it comes to asking for people's time is so precious to people, and people have different reasons why they want to spend time doing different things. And so one of the things that I really love, we have this in our book and it's meant for internal organizations, but I think it's great for anybody that is scheduling meetings. What is the true cost of your meeting? If you turn time into a monetary value, it makes it a lot easier for people to prioritize and for people to feel empowered to decline meetings. And I think that's really hard socially, especially for entrepreneurs that are building relationships and networking, to have this idea in their head of what is the value of this meeting. And so if you think about, what is the value of your product and how does that, go back to how much time do you spend creating your product? Would you just give that away for free? You're not going to give away for free an hour of your time without knowing what the goal is, without knowing what the ROI is, especially when in today's world, and you alluded to, Nicole, like the video, there's other ways to build connection. Another tool I love for building connection through video is Loom. And just recording like a 5-minute, like, hey, like now you get to see my personality and my vibe. And you can comment in that video link exactly as you're having reactions, and I can chat back. There's ways to build relationships with people on their own time. It doesn't have to be on your time.
Yeah,
I love it.
asynchronous
I
for
love it.
sure. Yeah.
I'm sitting here laughing underneath my breath because I'm like, who's really good at telling everybody in the world how much their time's worth? Lawyers. Lawyers are very good at that. Yet it's socially unacceptable, apparently, to everybody else in the world. We're like, oh, your time's worth $400 an hour, huh? Yes, it actually is for you to sit with me.
Every interview that we do, Ali, in fact, he just submits a little bit. No, I'm just kidding. He does not.
That career has been built on this idea of the billable hour, right? Every lawyer knows what their time is worth. So every moment you're speaking to a client, every time you're networking, every time you're doing something else in your field, you have to ask yourself, since I'm trading time for money here, what are we actually looking at here? And how much am I wasting not getting my billable hour out of it? Yet in other fields, I don't think people, like you said, easily just jump to that number to know what that value is worth.
Yeah, 100%. And I think people are nervous to quantify their time with money unless it's in an industry where it is acceptable. But I think the more you just do it mentally on the back end, the more you can be cautious around what you're doing. And sometimes there are cases too where the value of the meeting is enjoyment. And so it's worth it beyond the monetary value because you're getting fulfilled in other ways. And so I think what's really important as well for business owners, for leaders, is to think about, okay, well, obviously, in order to run a successful business, you need to bring in revenue and profit is important. But so is your personal enjoyment. Do you still feel passion today for the products and services you're offering from day one when you first set out to do this? And are there certain meetings you take because they reignite your passion? And how can you do more of those? Call it investing, because you're investing in your energy to create more things in your business.
Good point, Ali. You know what, Nicole, pull that invoice back. I'm enjoying my time with Ali.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
Ali, if everybody listening today could just take away one tip before they get the book, before they devour it, but there's just one thing that they could start implementing this week. To do beta experiments with themselves. And so one of my favorite chapters is around energy management. So we just talked a lot about how time is worth money, but also if you are working in your peak performance hours, time flies when you're having fun. And so how do you create moments in your workday where when you're focusing, when you're creating, you're able to create more in less time? And that goes down to working when you are the most productive version of yourself. And I think people don't know that about themselves. And entrepreneurs are better at this, but still you fall back into society's rules of we work best Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And that's not true for everybody. And so people need to unlearn skills before they have the physical, mental, emotional capacity to learn new skills. The way you unlearn skills is to experiment. And so choose one day a week where you're changing something in your work style and document. Does this make me feel better, more productive, happier at work? Or is it harder for me to reach my goals and produce outcomes? And over time, one day turns into 2 days, turns into 3 days, and you start learning more about yourself.
I do have this question because I know you alluded to this earlier on. You said even a bakery can outsource or use remote work and whatnot. But in reality, what I truly want to just touch on real quick is that there's so many different entrepreneurs and decision makers that are listening to the show today. And yet we're still struggling, including myself. Like Nicole knows for the last 2 months now, and she keeps just saying, go hire a couple people. Like I've been trying to fix this thing in my
I've
head.
written the job description and said, you
I
just
know.
fill in a few details and still.
Yes. It's like letting go of the idea of like, oh, just hire a couple remote contractors to work with you as opposed to having that one person with you in the office 9 to 5. Do you have a tip for somebody like myself or anybody else listening that's used to having that person as a resource right there or multiple people and instead just hiring? She's like,
I think she just said it. I could be wrong. You tell me, Ali, but I think she just said it. You have to experiment. You have to try it. No, in her example, it was try one day. You can't really try one day, but you could try one remote worker.
Okay.
But you tell me, Ali, what do you think? Is there another tip?
You
for
can try one specific project or task on a short-term basis and experiment with that. Also, though, what you're describing, I think, goes a lot to the shift of mindset around building trust, which is incredibly important as a business leader. Do you trust the people you're bringing onto your team? And if you do not know how to build trust remotely, you're going to fall back into the trap of, I just want someone around because I know how to have these micro moments with them to plan or not plan and just share work with them. When you're shifting to remote work, you need to learn how to be intentional, how to have foreshadowing into the work that needs to get done and when it can get done so you can set proper expectations. And for a business owner, especially in the early stages of launching a business when priorities are constantly shifting, it's really hard to foreshadow. But how can you force yourself to be intentional so that you can delegate properly and set clear expectations so that you can build trust?
Oh
So
my
you can-
goodness.
Okay.
I don't know if you feel attacked, so I'm gonna let you have a second.
No,
But I hope you feel seen and maybe a little bit attacked because here's what I heard. I heard all of your words, but the note that I wrote down, it's not so much only about trusting them because they might be very skilled remote workers that they're used to doing this. They flex that muscle a lot of times and they know how to manage that workload. But what you may not trust is that you can find the right remote worker for you and that you can trust that you'll plan for them. The little micro moments you talked about, like so many things could happen, so much work could get done or said or explained. But now I do have to take a step back and make sure that those same things get done or explained. And it's almost like, can you trust yourself to make sure all those things also happen? Otherwise, then you are wasting money.
All right. So here's what I'm just going to ask. Does the book help you develop that as a business owner? The skill set of learning how to foreshadow, I think was your exact words. I guess we're getting a little personal here, but I am thinking like, do I trust myself that I'm that good to build out the schedule, to build out the foreshadowing, to know what needs to be assigned and delegated? Or have I always just been used to that crutch of when it comes in my head in the middle at 2:00 in the afternoon, I just open the door and yell down the hallway. And I'm like, hey, can you exactly? I'm being transparent here, though. I'm being honest
Yeah, that's
about
good.
this. So
I
it's
like this part of the episode. I like this.
No, I
Reviews.
really appreciate the vulnerability. And there's a few chapters that come to mind that address
Okay.
those problems. So first and foremost, from a very structural point of view, we have a chapter called the Remote Works Blueprint, and it goes through how to think about work and what are all of the activities and tasks involved in work and how do you foreshadow that so that you can delegate, assign ownership, and how you hold people accountable. And so that's the first chapter I would recommend for people. But then it also goes down to learning about yourself and learning about others and having a good match in your working styles. So building self-awareness is critical as a business owner. And there's lots of activities and questions. We have something, we couldn't call it Mad Libs, but it's very similar to Mad Libs in the book that helps you identify what your work style is so that you can then have a contract with the people you work with, the people you bring on that says, hey, this is how I work. You know, maybe for now you are spontaneous, you can't plan. And so in your remote work agreement and your working style preferences of how you're going to engage with someone, you sit down, you have a collaboration kickoff and you say, I need time with you 3 times a week to just spitball ideas. And I expect you to organize those ideas and propose deadlines to me. And that's how this is going to work because I need someone structured to balance my wild energy. And I want someone to just listen to my ideas. And for now, in your remote work journey, that's a need that someone can fulfill. And it's also about knowing what your needs are as a business owner and how you can fill them through building out a stronger team.
That's it. Nicole, we have to wrap up the show. I need to go get the book. We just
Okay,
saw this.
Are you going to go get the book or do you need me to purchase the book and get it to you?
No, I'm going to get this, because this is a pain point. It's like,
I was teasing that you needed an assistant to go grab the book.
I know what you
Hey,
did there.
go grab the book.
Hey, congrats. Yeah.
Ali, tell me, what is one of the key lessons that you've learned as an entrepreneur, something you find yourself saying again and again?
It's okay to make mistakes.
It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. Yeah, that's a good one.
How would you define your entrepreneurial success?
Spontaneous and intuitive at the same time, which to me just means that it was unexpected when and where and how it happened, but it feels so true to core pieces of my identity that, of course, it happened in this way.
Awesome.
Tell us what's next for you. Do you have a new idea percolating, anything we should know about? And then where do we connect?
What's next for us is we just launched new trainings around fundamental skills for remote works in addition to the book. And so if people want more interactive, engaging, or customized support, they can reach out to me and Tam. And the best place to reach out to me is on LinkedIn. I love connecting with people there and sharing more content and having asynchronous relationship building. And so you can find me through my name, Ali, A-L-I, and Greene like the color, but with an extra E on the end of it.
I love it. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ali.
Have a great day.
Hey, it's Nicole, and that's the end of the interview. But stick around. This is the part where Matt and I break it all down and give you our favorite takeaways. Listen in.
Hey, Matt. So today we talked with Ali Greene, author and remote works consulting.
Yeah, it was great.
I really liked it. For takeaway, one of the first things I wrote down was the word change. How she said, that's what entrepreneurs, like, that's what we're used to. That's what we know. That's what we do. She gave examples from when she was a kid in middle school, like 4 different middle schools.
Yeah, it was awesome. It summed up so quickly. We're ready for it. We roll with the punches, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's coming and it's going to come again. And we're going to also mix it up ourselves.
Yes, exactly. For me, I'll tell you now, the idea of having to like unlearn things, right? The idea of like the old rules don't apply anymore in business. So many times we think of ourselves as the business owner, what we have to do to tap into the talent, those resources or whatever. But we have to think about what are they going through?
Right.
Whether it's a contract worker, it's a gig worker, they're recognizing the economy has changed. You don't work somewhere for 25 years. You don't work that same job. Like they understand that now and they're pursuing these other opportunities.
Right.
So what are you doing as an employer?
Yeah.
To attract that person or set that person up for success.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And she told you how to unlearn some of those behaviors was to experiment, which felt very marketing like.
Right.
We're all about experimentation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So the third one I felt that we talked about before this, I think could have taken over all our takeaways.
Right.
It was really big for us. And that came back to trust. Like you're ready to hire here pretty
Right.
soon.
Yeah.
She talked about making those choices and how it is, can you trust that person?
Right.
With the time, with their job, if you can't see them or be in their presence.
Right.
But really, I believe that it's not just, do we trust them? It's, do we trust ourselves?
No, it's big. I mean, I think.
Do you trust you to delegate?
That's a delegate well. That's the key thing. Delegate well. As opposed, as I said, yelling out the door, hey, can we get that done right now? You reference them all the time. I think it's the notion that we were brought up in a day and age and possibly even worked for Disney villains, right? So we know what it's like to work for people that, I don't want to say mistreated us. I mean, maybe it's been a little
that's
far.
what Disney villains do. Yeah,
It's exactly, exactly.
Yes.
And I don't want to repeat the process, but on the flip side of it, I sit back and say, but it's like letting go of those reins a little bit. But if you do that, if you don't instruct that person, she used the word foreshadowing. Are you foreshadowing what they should be doing? Are you foreshadowing what should be happening next? Because if you can't do that well, then you need a budget time or an allowance to explore that with that person, right? It's basically what she kindly said to me, right? You know?
Hey, so foreshadow I felt was like a big word to say plan.
Right.
Like you've got to be able to plan your work, plan your day, plan what you're up to. I also think that I'm going to take the foreshadow word and the planning word because that sounds like work. And while we appreciate work, I think we love what we do so much that it sometimes feels like joy. And so I'm going to use a different word where if you could just make sure your people are set up for success like a video game. I'm not a big gamer, but if you could think about your project management tool that you're going to spend some time in, as almost like a gamification.
Okay.
That like your person wants to make sure they check off the boxes. So it's a matter of how do you make sure that they can check off those boxes? What I loved is the tip that she gave you, like was so perfect for your personality and she barely knew you, was, hey, what if you just have these meetings 3 times a week? And it's their job to organize your thoughts.
Well, can I have a 3A today? Can I do a 3A?
Yeah, you can do the 3A.
All right, 3A, because it was great. She talked about having that energy tracker. Flip to the very end of the show and catch the notes. There's a great
Yeah.
resource this time. She talked about an energy tracker, and it's something that kind of blew my mind to think about. Like, we tend to compound so much stuff and duties into time. How much time did it take you to do this? How much time did it take you to do that? She says, well, what about energy?
Yeah.
Because there's certain things you do that might take you more time, but you don't mind doing.
Right.
But
right.
there's things that might just take you a few minutes. I've got 5 or things off the top of my head that I can't stand doing, but they only take 5-10 minutes to go do.
Right.
So if it's a lot of energy to expel to get
Right.
that done,
Right.
you
But
know,
I think though that, okay, so maybe 3B. Maybe
3B.
it's gonna go
Okay,
on for
3B.
forever.
All right. We got 5 today, folks.
The thing is, of those things that will only take you a few minutes to do, I think those are the things that sometimes hold us back because we don't want to spend, if they only take us 5 minutes.
Right.
We don't want to spend the 5 minutes to put it in somewhere else so that someone else can go do it.
Right.
Yet, if we would create a template for these things are going to come up,
Sure.
you got to go do them.
Yep.
Like a
Mhm.
change to a website. The other
Right.
day, I quickly made the change to the website. Well, guess what? It didn't save. Well, I quickly did it again. I did it about 15 times, so I had it memorized, basically. It just wouldn't save. The point is, it was easier for me to get on a quick call with Rachel.
Okay.
She was able to do done. But
Okay.
I felt because it was going to take me 3 to 5 minutes, I'm not going to give that to somebody else.
Right.
The amount of time is going to take me to tell someone else. And I
Right.
think that's what holds us back. And
Right.
so it's how can we make sure that those things are a template and that we can trust that we can give that away instead of just yelling out the hall, hey, can you come over and look at my computer for a minute? Like, can you look at what I'm doing? And
I've been that guy. It's funny. Like, I'm like, why is this not working? Why is this not working?
So I think that that's the key. Like there are those times. So I haven't seen her energy tracker yet, but one I've told you all about on the show before was how to trim, transfer, trash, and treasure
Right.
was a part of the tracker through the clockwork. And we'll link that as well. But that was all about like, what do I treasure? Like what do I really want to keep on my list?
Right,
Like what do I
right,
really like
right.
to do? What can I trim? What can I trash? Like what just doesn't need to happen or what could be automated?
Right.
The taco method we talked
Right.
about before.
Yeah.
And then of course, what can be transferred to somebody else? Like what's really clear that's not in your wheelhouse, for
Again,
example.
agree. 100%.
Oh, there's just so
Yeah.
much untrust being
Yes.
a two-way street.
Yes.
Not of them, but also of ourselves. Well, you know what we say. If
Yeah.
you're listening,
Keep listening.
you've been listening to the Serial Entrepreneur Show, produced by the team here at Smart Cookie Media.